have come together to scale. If you were a content producer in 2009 or 2008 or 2010, and you looked at where human beings came to your content from on the internet, a huge majority of it was search. It could be 40, 50% of the people coming to your content were going through a search engine. And this past year in 2014 was the first time that social went by search. And it not only went by search, but it scaled right by it. And 6 months later, there was a massive gap between what search, how people were searching for content, and how people were getting content discovery through social. So today, social has outstripped search in terms of the ability for where our content we produce and our partner content that we distribute, where it goes and who gets it. And this is a fundamental moment in the internet, I think, where it is the combination of people with machines on the fly, basically sharing content. And this is a big economic shift also. So human beings, when they look at content, tend to think of the content landscape as a giant, sort of messy landscape of different media companies with different assets and different types of content. It could be outdoor, could be films, could be internet sites, could be magazines. And the media industry up until now has lived off the fact that not everything was distributed to everybody, and people have been able to get pieces of content all over. The advertising marketplace looks at media the same way humans do, which looks like a very messy array of where you put ads and how you put them. And the most important trend right now inside of the future of content and content distribution is machine media views, which is how you and I look at media might be totally different than how a machine looks at media. And the machine in your pocket, connected to some of the bigger services on the internet and some big content companies, are now starting to go through and regulate every piece of content that comes in, where it came in from, and it evens it all out. So if you did advertising in the Mad Men era or age, you might pick one partner to work with, put all your ads on that partner, try to figure out some ROI of what those advertising did, look at your share of market for consumer usage. And today, when a machine looks at that, the machine basically can calculate down to a very, very, very tight level of precision what content's the best for you, why it's the best, what the ROI is for the content producer and for the advertiser also. And the media industry is getting flattened out from a standpoint of understanding where quality is and where quality isn't. A huge amount of the focus that we're doing as a company is how do you build content for the machine-driven age? And this is one example, which is the Huffington Post is starting to build versions of the Huffington Post depending on what type of media you came from. So when you flip on your cable channel or you go on the internet a lot, all the content sites just think you're on the internet and they serve you up one version of their properties. We're starting to serve up different versions of the properties. So if you're looking at the left-hand side, the direct Huffington Post, when you navigate to it directly on mobile, it looks like the version on the left. In the middle, it's someone coming from Pinterest. The Huffington Post morphs into something that looks more like Pinterest. And on the right-hand side, it's from Facebook. It looks more like Facebook. So the machines are able to recraft what our properties actually look like by what device you have and what type of property you were on before you came to our properties. You can imagine if we were in the offline world and every magazine morphed into a format from the media that you were looking at previously to a magazine, or the cable channel morphed to look like what you were just looking at overall. So this is a dynamic way of personalizing content. The next piece of it is, how do we know what content to serve to you as a human being in the past versus the future? In the past, we would just put up content to the same piece of content to everybody and hope that you liked it. And if some people liked it, great. And if other people didn't like it, we'd lose those people. And a couple of years ago, we decided to basically personalize content for everybody on the internet, both for our properties and other people's properties. And we bought a company called Gravity. And Gravity's mission was to personalize the internet. And so today, we can build interest graphs for people, and we can build interest graphs for a company like a Netflix. So if you think about people who use Netflix, those arrows are probably too small to see, but basically we know if you use Netflix or you're on Netflix, you have a higher, these are all in different interest categories, the slices in this pie here, and one of the main areas of interest is science. So when you think about this, the person on Netflix might be interested in robots or space, or might be interested in Star Trek. So every single individual and every single company, we are building interest graphs for them to understand how to serve the right content at the right time to the right person. And the outcomes of this are pretty amazing. We're able to increase the amount of content consumption and correctness by about 85 to 105% in terms of the exactness of where content goes. And I'll give you one quick example. Is when you go to the AOL homepage, the left side might be, say, somebody who's interested in straight news. On the right-hand side, you're looking at the person who came from Netflix, which is the #1 story on AOL.com, is about science and about space. And if you think about the fact that we have over 250 million people on AOL, and we basically look at about 1 billion different pieces of data a day right now to decide what type of content. We look at about 1 trillion pieces of advertising information every day to decide what ad goes to what person. All of this is going to culminate in the golden age of giving the right content to the right person at the right time. And you as an individual are going to have a personalization graph of what you are really like. Not what your social feed is, not what your LinkedIn profile is, but what is your personal profile and what content and advertising is best matched up for you. On the advertising side, there's a lot of innovation in the advertising business right now. And I would say the personalization that's going on in content is happening just as fast in advertising. So these two examples are from L'Oreal. L'Oreal essentially gives us a massive upload of all their content. And when you go to an internet page or a mobile page, using all this personalization technology, we will auto-build an ad for you that has the most likely content you'll be interested in overall. And the ad rates are much, 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 much higher, sometimes 10 times higher in terms of the engagement from a consumer. And not only that, but once you have a consumer who likes this content, you'll see one of the videos playing in one of the ads, if you can get them to watch that first piece of content, that's a video that they like, the ad itself, that one individual ad gets smarter and starts pulling in different types of content into the ad. So while you're on one ad, the content within the ad changes. And I don't know how many of you guys are sports fans, but this is the example I've used recently. Is I was watching the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament, and the same ad for one of the car companies kept coming up over and over and over, and it was the same ad, and they showed it to me 5 times in the first half of one of the games. Overall, which is, it's not a car I was interested in, #1, and #2 is they use 5 blocks of time to keep showing me that ad. And the difference is on the internet, if we knew you didn't like that ad, we would be rotating that ad out to find an ad that you like and the content around as well. So the old way of doing TV, content and ads, to the new way that the internet's doing them is a very, very dynamic, huge shift overall. The other thing we're starting to do is think very, very deeply about when and how to deliver content to people. So on the screen right now, we own MapQuest. MapQuest has about 40 million people that use it a month. This is a map of Baltimore, and in the morning when people start commuting into Baltimore. And you'll notice a few things about the map if you watched it when it loaded, is the outside of Baltimore, people started commuting first, and they left at a pretty significant time difference to the people who live in downtown Baltimore to go to work or go to school. So we know in this geolocation of Baltimore, we need to serve some of the people in Baltimore content earlier in the morning and some of the people in Baltimore content later in the mornings overall. And what we're working on now is over the course of every city, eventually in the world, is how do you serve content delivery to the right people in a personalized way with the right technology and the right focus for how they're actually living their lives. I live in Connecticut. I have a long commute into New York City every day. I get up really early. If you don't catch me between 5 and 6 in the morning, my profile as a consumer is much different than 6 a.m. Beyond. And as a company and a content delivery, we want to know that. So these are the types of things that we're thinking about. Based on that data, we just developed a morning show called AOL Rise. AOL Rise is meant to get you news before you leave in the morning. It's targeted at different times during the morning. And we also built the Rise Studio, so it's absolutely mobile friendly. If you notice, the screen that the person's in front of is bigger than the person itself, and that's because on a mobile device, the studio has to look different than it does on an internet or on TV. So we're not only targeting our content differently, we're also starting to build all of our studios and the outputs for mobile first delivery of that in a differentiated way. On the screen behind is a show called Connected we did, which is one of the first shows in the US that's a high quality show that's people filming themselves with machines. Overall, Susan Sarandon's in it, there's a whole bunch of other well-known people in it, but our whole company, if you look at this example, is this content's getting served in the morning when we know people need it. The studios are built for mobile first, and the shows we're showing are all, that's a machine-driven show that's all filmed on the machine in your pocket overall. So the level of integration is going very vertical within our company. The other thing that we're working on very deeply is, that was the television that was up, is how do you change content and advertising on TV to work like the internet? This is an example of one of the systems we have. We're putting into linear TV right now. Ritani is an advertiser we're using, but we have a system that will go in, sit on a set-top box. So we have about 1.5 million set-top boxes in the US. Nielsen has 200,000 boxes they look at data on for consumers. We have 1.5 million, and in the 1.5 million, we can come up with about 400 attributes for different channels of content and who's on those pieces of content, what ads you should give them, and the output of this is pretty amazing. Ritani is somebody who sells rings. Slide should go forward. And basically, if you were Ritani and you wanted to target different TV channels to sell rings to people, you would think that young males and sports fans probably are buying rings to get married. If you look at this, we developed a ratio called the T ratio, and the T ratio basically goes through all of the channels and figures out how likely those 400 attributes are to match on content and advertising to the people. And basically you can see First Take on ESPN2 is 50% more likely to have somebody buy a ring on it. The Daily Show on ESPN is about 10% more likely, and NASCAR is about 20% less likely to have people who want to buy rings. I don't know what that says about NASCAR people. Single forever. But these are the types of things that we're really starting to experiment in the TV space about also.